Welcome to the Double D Podcast with your host, Double D. Welcome to the Double D Podcast. Today we have a good friend of mine who is really interesting. We met probably, so then if we go back, how long ago was it?
Almost 20 years.
Are you serious?
Legitimately almost 20 years.
Holy smoke, 20 years, and we just reconnected about a month ago, and it's been awesome, man. I mean, it's one of those things we just, started from where we left off, and by the way, I'm so excited about today.
You know what? We were having conversations before this that I actually said, stop. I stopped you and I go, listen, man, we got to record this because this is the point of this, right?
Exactly.
It's to really get inside
yes.
thought processes and patterns and motivations and saying, regardless of, because I listen to your other ones, right? And you're bringing on people that you think have done things. And when you speak to them, you realize, oh man, this guy's done a lot.
Yes.
It is a lot.
Yes.
And with all those, we'll get into it later on today, but there's such an important aspect of looking into those things that I think people resonate with. And it's personal journeys and stories and quests and stuff you have to conquer, right? And you were just about to talk about what got you into this. And that's when I said stop, because that's something that I think is so important to find it, because we've never had that conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was like, hey, this is what this is for.
And this will be the first podcast where I do. But you are my phenomenal guest, and I want to give a little bit of an intro about what you've done and who you are. So basically, Ron is a detective constable.
That's right.
With the Toronto Police. He has about 16 years in law enforcement. This is some real cool stuff. As much as obviously, we can cover within the bounds of the relationship.
Yeah, of course.
Right, obviously, right. And you've been obviously as a police officer 13 years in some specialized units and squads, and I think some of the work you do comes out of that. So I'm really interested to talk about that as well. 19 years as a volunteer in various initiatives like coaching soccer, football, rugby, a lot of non-for-profit initiatives throughout the GTA. I love this, and we're going to talk about this. You've done some programs for at-risk youth as well. And then this is where I feel like I'm interviewing Batman. No, I'm going to be interviewing Batman today. This guy's Batman. So that's one side. Now, and as you know, I'm an MMA junkie, enthusiast, train as well. But Mr. Ron here is a two-time Naga World Grappling Champion, no-gi, intermediate. He's also done the Grappler's Quest North American Champion in white belt gi. And I know, and this is what we talked about at the last party, you've done some MMA fights with Heroes Combat League and Ace Fights. And we actually, the gym I go to, Combat Arts, there's some fighters we discussed as well.
Mutual friends.
Mutual friends who are on that card as well. And this is crazy. And you're also a kabaddi player.
I was retired.
Holy smoke!
But I think I hit the bill for a professional kabaddi player.
Did you really?
I think I hit it because, I don't know. It's weird. It's hard to describe. I know professionals, you're paid. Well, I was traveling and I never paid anything, right? And I was entering professional tournaments.
True.
Hey, man, I'd consider myself a professional kabaddi player, and that it was a amazing experience, man. Amazing. And it was a long one.
Well, let's go, because I'm so excited. First things first, right? How did you get into law enforcement? What drove you to be a police officer?
You know what, man? That's a question that I got asked from the very beginning, right? And usually when you apply to become a police officer, that's one of the first questions they ask you. They'll say to you, Dave, if you apply to be a police officer, why do you want to be a cop? And then you come up with an answer. And I remember my answer was, listen, I want to be able to help people, and I want to be able to pay my mortgage every month.
Perfect.
And I knew that was going to be a steady income because, coming from immigrant families, our parents, or my parents, I should say at least, their big thing to pass on to us as kids was get a government job. Because their big struggle was, I don't know where my next paycheck is going to come from. I don't know if my company's going to go out of business. I don't know if they're going to lay off a shift at the factory and I'm going to lose a job. You got to pay the bills. And all the people that they met around them were saying, man, you got to get a government job that pays relatively well. You got a pension at the end of it, and you're guaranteed that paycheck every 2 weeks because you're unionized and, you have all these protections afforded to you. So that's why I said I want to be able to pay my mortgage. And I had to explain that a little bit more, saying, hey, there's a bigger reason than me just paying my mortgage. But when I really look back and have to be fair about it, and I had to reassess this the last 4 or 5 weeks ago in a situation where I had developed a mentorship relationship with a student who's at the age of 20. And,
wonderful.
And there's a few of them that work with me that we really develop strong relationships. And she was going through the policing process, and she had got rejected for some unknown reasons. And I was rejected a whole bunch of times when I applied, man. And when I started talking to her, I started to really have to explain, well, what got me into this in the first place? Because naturally, you have your thoughts and your experiences, but unless you're given an opportunity to share them, you don't really sort those thoughts out or compartmentalize them into something articulate. So in this case, I had to explain to her.
So interesting. So like in terms of your journey, so you actually got rejected a few times before you got in?
Buddy, that's 100%.
Holy smoke.
Yeah, you were saying before how that my upbringing had one set of optics to it, right? And that optics was true, but what you don't see behind the scenes is for every success we had, there's like
all the struggle
5, 6, 7, 8 times that those don't come easy. Those are lessons learned. Those are hard lessons learned, especially in the family environment. So you see that success. Well, I had to do the same thing with policing. You get rejected 1, 2, 3, 4 times. It was all stuff that I was ultimately responsible for. So it wasn't like, oh, they overlooked me. No, man, I screwed up. I had to pay the price, and the price was getting rejected and then redoing it and getting rejected and looking at, well, how do I make myself more applicable? And really, every time you get rejected, I think in anything, you blame the other person for not seeing the value you see in yourself. But sometimes there's other stuff that matters, right? And those things that matter outside of that are accomplishments. And this is why accomplishments are important for me. It shows a pattern of behavior for somebody who wants to exceed and excel and takes personal responsibility for it. Nobody says to you, Dave, you're going to go compete in a Muay Thai tournament and you're going to win the whole tournament. Nobody plants that in you. Like, they may plant seeds, but ultimately it's your
choice.
You grow it.
Yeah, your path.
It's your baby, right? So you do it. So all those accomplishments, also whatever they had to be, I had to kind of fill in the gaps that I had to make myself more applicable, and that's really what got me started into the volunteer work. Really and really not really. And this is kind of where it gets me into policing, where I had coaches growing up, right? Obviously, I have family that's policing.
Sure.
And you get exposed to that, right?
Yeah,
Through the policing
exactly.
environment. But really, it wasn't that as the hard tie-in to want to pursue this. I think I had coaches and teachers growing up that really planted gems in me that were just one-liners. And I remember 3 instances in particular that stuck with me. And the only reason I know they stuck with me is because here I am 20 years later talking about it. I can remember it like it was yesterday.
It's always like that too, right?
Yeah, you don't value it in the moment.
No. It's hindsight is 20/20.
It's crystal clear as long as you pay attention to it and you can filter through the noise you've created. You got to pull the curtains back and take a look at it for what it was. And it was like in grade 4, one teacher said, hey, you're a really good speaker. You should pursue this. I want you to read more at home. I want you to write, and I want you to talk to yourself.
Oh, wow.
And nobody had ever told me that before, right? Because think about it. Our parents or my parents, English is a second language. So you had to develop a strong sense of vocabulary to really get what you need in the shortest amount of time, which became efficient communication. So
when that teacher told you that, do you actually remember going back and reading more? And
yeah, grade 4, man. She told me, she said, you are a good reader and you're a good speaker and you need to work on this. And it was my grade 4 teacher. So I was like, cool, man. And didn't
give a shout out. Do you remember her name?
I don't even remember her name. To be honest, I wish I could. I don't even remember her name. So that was that experience. And then when I got older into grade 11 or 12, it was one of these. There's one teacher's name was Mr. Ponzi. He's a geography teacher, grade 10 or OAC. I don't remember what it was. Either way, OAC, sorry. He was my OAC geography teacher. And his class, you remember OAC. So for those people who don't know what it is, it's like the last year of high school. Yep. It's all that mattered.
Yep.
Out of your 8 courses, your top 6 grades that was submitted to the university or college of your choice, and you were accepted based on that. So my last year, I was doing well enough in 6 courses, and just so happened that his course and one other course, finite, I didn't need, and I just didn't have any interest in it. So his course I would never come to. I would show up for the tests, you know what I mean? And we were 18, you could sign yourself out, so it wasn't an issue. And the last day of my high school year, literally the last day of my school year, I'm walking out to collect my something from him. I forget. He had to give everybody a slip or something. And he stops me and he goes, "Hey, man." And I go, "Yes, sir." And I was always respectful. Always respectful.
Sure.
I didn't disrupt. I wasn't that guy. But I remember he pulls me aside and he's like, "Hey, listen, man." And I go, "Yes, sir." And he's like, it sounds so crazy, but he said to me, look me dead in the eyes, and he's like, "You're going to do great things in this world." And he's like, "Don't forget that." And
Oh, wow.
I didn't even.
How cool is that?
I didn't even know he knew my name. And I clearly remember it. And I just remember kind of like pausing because I was so shocked that he even knew who I was. And then that came out of his mouth. And the way he said it, he wasn't just saying it like generic, like, "Hey, Dave, you're going to do great things." He'd stop me.
He really focused.
To look at me, and he left. And I just said, "Thank you so much, sir. I appreciated it." And I left. And I got valedictorian that year, and I was school president.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So then,
wow. Which high school was that?
Chinguacousy Secondary School, 2000. I was the valedictorian and president. I played on all the sports teams, and even valedictorian. That's a whole crazy story. So, because I didn't win it by grades. I wasn't like the overachiever academically. But
oh, really?
Yeah. I think looking back and conversations I've had since then, you have small impactful moments with people, and when you grow up with a certain group of people from kindergarten all the way up to OAC or grade 13,
sure.
that same feeder group, you don't realize, which was crazy for me, you don't realize the impact you have on other people.
Wow.
Because it's not when you're in the room, it's when you're not here that people are saying,
and people, or
good
this
energy.
and that,
And that's to an audience that's bigger than a single conversation. That's to 15 people or 10 people, right? So then that carries itself.
So you're not a superstar now. You've always been a superstar.
No. No.
That's so cool.
No, it wasn't a superstar. Yeah. It's just, it's now I look back, like I'm very happy in the choices I made. Not all of them, but the big choices I think I had to make. I'm very happy, and it'll come out why. So anyways, so that's my teacher. And then my chemistry teacher, I was a pain in her ass, dude. I was a pain in her ass. Like, I would show up late all the time. It was after lunch. It wasn't just me. It was my group of friends, and we were respectful, but we did not make it easy for her. And she had to be the intro speech for me, right, for my valedictorian speech.
Oh, cool.
And
You're going, "Oh, what do I do?"
Yeah, Mrs. Hopkinson, I think, or Hopkinson.
Oh, really?
And
should have sent her flowers or something.
Oh, dude.
Chocolates.
She was
please.
She was not a young chicken at the time. I can't imagine she's still around today. Like, it was 20.
Wow.
I don't think she's gonna be around. Anyway, so I found out, man, she's gonna do my
opening.
Like, this is the one teacher that I managed to piss off on a daily basis. Like, this is the one that's gonna do the opening. So
do you have any conversation with her?
Yeah, I have
First,
to go see her. They're like, "Go see her. She's going to do your intro."
Yeah,
that's all. I'm like, "Can we change this to Mr. Ponzi or like
someone
one
who's
of the
like
other guys?"
Someone thinks I'm a superstar.
Yeah, one of my other teachers, and they're like, "Nah, man, we're going to go with Mrs. Hopkins. You got to go see her. She wants to ask some questions about you." So, and this is now I just realize I'm such an asshole when I was younger. So I go to see her, and she's like asking me, and she's not, obviously she doesn't want to talk to me, right? So she's putting up with me, and she asked me all these questions, like, "Tell me about your family, tell me about what you do for fun," and we have that's all I remember from that conversation. And I leave, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, and then she wanted to see my speech prior to, so I wrote it and I gave it to her, and I made it really personal, right? I said, these are the things that happened to me that I value, and I want to thank people individually that really had an impact on me. And the reason I wanted to talk about it because I wanted other people to look at people in their life and acknowledge that, my mom and dad did do shit for me.
Exactly.
And that is as much as who I am right now than it is this school and this environment, which was super important. So I made that, and I remember I put that in, and she's like, "Take it all out." And so I was like, "Okay, I'll take it all out." I didn't take it out. So
I'm actually kind of glad you didn't.
Yeah, I didn't, man. So
because that's important.
Yeah.
Right.
To me, it was.
No, that's good. That's important.
But I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, listen, this teacher, I'm such an idiot to her already. Now she's doing my intro, and she told me not to do the speech. She's going to lose her mind when I say that speech. So now I'm waiting to go up for my speech, and she's up there, and she's saying something, and I'm listening to her opener for me, and I'm just like, oh man, I'm upset that I did all those stupid things, and I'm like, now I'm going to pay for it. Like, this is karma. And dude, she said nothing but nice things about me, man. And she meant it. Like, she just said nothing but good things about me. And she gave me a hug before I did speech. And I was like, man, like, you know, that felt good. And then I'm thinking to myself, and now
I'm just going to lay it in.
I'm going to drop this speech that you just quashed hard. So I do the speech, and I look back at her the first time. I say, you know, and I really want to thank my dad for beating me up all those years. And I look back at her, and she just puts her head down in her hand, and I'm just like, I think I mouthed her, I'm sorry, like, I'm gonna do this. So I did it, and ended up leaving. And then my last teacher up there, so there was Mr. Ponzi, there was my grade 4 teacher, and this teacher in the auditorium, but one teacher in particular, his name was Mr. Dankert. He was my grade 9 to OAC English teacher. I had him for 5 years. Guy was mad cool, man. He was like the 24-year-old teacher that came into high school. He was that guy. And same thing, man. He here's the thing, man. You know, I think everybody has innate abilities. We all have things that we're born with, gifts, I'll call them, in terms of things that you're naturally good at. And that's where people say to you, probably, Dave, you got to do something, like go on a microphone, like, you got to do this, you got it for it. And you got to listen to those, right? So this guy, he'd given us, and this was my ability, is my ability is I can figure out how much leash you're going to give me. So I know how far to pull it very quick. So with him, he gave me a lot of rope. So I would always come in late. I'd always, you know, do bullshit stuff in class in terms of, you know, making up projects on the spot. And he always gave me a great grade, and he left it. And then I remember we had one conversation where I think I was in grade 11, and he was like, listen, man, we have an ISU. You remember that stuff? Independent Study Unit?
Yeah. I actually love those.
Dude, they were great.
They were
There's 3
cool
months you're on your own, right? You're just doing your thing.
Yeah.
So he says, you got to do this thing for ISU. You got to come in, and I do this speech, and I totally abused the thesaurus. Like, I dropped bombs for no reason. I had normal words, I should have kept it. So I did this whole big elaborate speech with this piece of paper and all these big words. And he pulls me to the side, and he's like, listen, kid. He's like, being smart is not making little things big. It's making big things little. And I was like, a light went off. You know, you have your aha moments, your eureka moments, and that stuck in my brain. So I kept that going forward. And anyways, they had the impact, and I know we kind of got lost in that story.
No, that was really cool.
Yeah, but at the time, I was playing a lot of sports in high school: rugby, football, basketball, soccer.
Oh, so you were all-star athlete?
I played everything, man.
Nice.
I don't know if I was an all-star, but I was on every team.
Nice.
And
Nice.
And I was pretty good. I was always on the starting line.
Nice.
So it was like, okay, good. And I had coaches that popped in. Some of them were cops, and I really appreciated how they carried themselves.
Interesting.
You know, like, that was my first observation, was even though I had family involved into it, you don't have that type of relationship, right? So you don't, in terms of,
because family's
you never
family.
view them as like, oh, this is what it is,
exactly.
right? You don't. So with these people, I did, and they carried themselves in a certain way that I kind of admired, and it was very in control, very straight to the point, very no nonsense about it, and what they said is what they meant. And I just drew to that, and I said, you know what, I like that. And then I started,
like the demeanor, the energy.
Yeah, I did. I liked that they just kind of knew what was going to happen, and they knew how to really follow the vision. When I look back now, so I was like, I was intrigued by it, and then you know, when you're intrigued by things, you slowly become that, right? Because it's your focus, and you become your focus. So I became focused on it. I think I slowly became it. And then I naturally fell into this role of policing. I was actually in school studying kinesiology and health science. I wanted to be a chiropractor, believe it or not.
Oh, interesting.
I did.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
And at the time, OHIP stopped covering. Ontario Health stopped covering chiropractic coverage.
Okay, yeah.
So I was like, what am I going to do? I took a year off. And here's the thing, and this is the crazy part, man. This is where stuff starts to get a little wild, is that whole time I was in high school, like, I don't know how it was for you, but like, I had to have a job at all times.
Yeah, that's how it was.
Like,
yeah, 100%.
If I
even university.
I had to have a job. And if I wasn't in school, I better have 2 jobs.
Yep.
Like, that was the expectation.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's what I believed, right? So I was like, man, me and my best friend at the time, we end up, we're 18, we go to all ages club called Karma Club. At the time in Toronto, so it's all ages. Yeah. And when we walk in, we were both big kids, like, for our size. We were 19, I think, or 18, sorry. And we walk into the club, and it's all ages, and we're like, yo, we're bigger than half of these bouncers here, man, right? And we were both hustlers, Vic and I, for jobs. And we did every job together from 15 up to like 24. We did every job together almost. So we walk out of the club, and we say to one of the guys, and we're 18, and we say to the head doorman, who I still talk to today,
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Shout out to Jay Quickshank, man. And I see Jay, and I'm like, hey, man, are you guys looking for extra bounces, your security work?
Oh, nice.
And
nice.
Jay gives us the up down, and Vic was way bigger than me, man. Like I'm 5'11", I think I was 180 pounds, but solid. But Vic was like 6'3", 290.
Oh, nice.
Like big boy.
Big boy.
So he looks at us and he goes, all right, man, come back next week. That was it.
Perfect.
So we come back next week on the Thursday, and from 18 to 23, I was working as a doorman at night and a bouncer in like all the nightclubs in Toronto at the time. I was really etched to the nightlife scene, the entertainment scene here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man. Vic and I
You must have some crazy stories.
a lot. You know what? A lot of stories, man. A lot of stories, like crazy ones.
So you worked. It's interesting because even the MMA club I'm part of and all that, a lot of the instructors had the same type of thing. They were part of like security companies, and then they work the.
You work
So
the strip.
you work a certain. Wow.
Yeah, you develop a reputation inside the entertainment industry. So when you're a bouncer, it's like we have to start off in like the hard.
Okay, I gotta ask this. Ask this. Worst fight that you remember?
Oh man, here's the thing. We never lost any because there was always like 5 of us, right?
Yeah.
And usually the guys are drunk and they're stupid and they have other friends, but their friends are drunk and we're stone cold sober, and it's a bunch of meatheads, man. Ultimately, that are used to rough times. So there's no liquid courage there. It's hard men. It's not something you want a problem with, and that we won because we worked in numbers and we had the same mentality. So that was.
So you're talking about the team, the security team.
Yeah, the team down there. Dude, think about it. You want to be a bouncer at a nightclub. Guys think right off of the bat about broads, right? They think girls, I'm going to pick up. Doesn't work that way, man. It is a hard night depending on where you're at, and we were at some hard spots. But there was one. Oh man, I can't. Okay, I'll tell you this, but I'm gonna have to edit some of it out. Not edit, but just not say certain things about certain people because there was a celebrity involved in it.
Yeah. Okay, don't. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, don't say the celebrity. That's
I'm not going to say the
celebrity. You don't have
not
to
at
say
all,
it.
man. But we get a call. So Vic and I ended up developing a really good reputation in the entertainment district because we were the only 2 Indian guys at the time, our age category, that had known everybody and worked the whole circuit. Like we'd worked from the bottom to the top.
Wow.
So
that's a neat accolade,
dude.
So you were the two Indian guys
at
on
the
the
time,
circuit.
the only time at the time.
Wow. So
We were
there weren't
only
as
2.
many.
Not at all, man. Dude, we were the only 2 that kind of got into that. And we got in because we got hooked up through Jay. And, once you have a made guy, and Jay was a made guy because he had worked all the gang clubs. So we didn't know that club at the time, Karma, was a gang club. We had no idea.
Oh,
So
wow.
we had
Interesting.
We just said, hey, man, this is a place that's
Karma,
coastal.
that was on. Oh, sorry, that was on.
Dixon Road on Highway 27.
Yes.
In
Right
the
across the
basement.
hotel.
Yeah, in
Right
the basement of the hotel, behind the hotel.
Oh, yes. Okay, I remember.
Yeah.
Yep.
So at the time we get in, and when you can hold your own in those clubs,
What does that mean?
like you're there for longer than 2 weeks.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
You're in there for we were 6, 7, 8, 9 months deep, man, in that place, and that's a long time for one place.
So there's a lot of a turnover.
Oh, buddy, it's turnover heaven. But then you have your core squad that sticks, and there was about 8 of us, and we'd worked for a company at the time, or somebody had a link to some company who, after about a year and a half, 2 years, every major celebrity that would come into one of the like 30 clubs we worked at, we got brought in as a special team. And we got brought in, and we were called,
So you're like VIP.
yeah,
VIP
and
security.
for celebrities, and we were called the float team. So float as in FLOAT, and there was about 8 of us, 9 of us that was headed up by Jay, and we did it for Sean Paul, Snoop Dogg,
Oh, wonderful,
Missy
wonderful.
Elliott, Ludacris, the Backstreet Boys at the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
DJ Tiesto. I think the first time he came to
Tiesto?
Toronto, we did that. Yeah,
I was just listening to him.
yeah, dude.
Oh,
There was
nice.
a lot of celebrities that we
Wow.
had come, like, obviously the Vince Carter and the Raptors and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
yeah,
whenever
that's
they came
right.
Down, like all those things, we were there, and a whole bunch of other bands I can't remember, but there were some that stick out. But so, anyways, we developed this rep. Well, in the Indian community, whenever there was a
Like a Bollywood star?
Bollywood star or big Indian singer, big Punjabi singer, coming into town, we would get the call, but we'd always say no. Right? We'd say no, man. Like, 1, the money's not right, and 2, there's going to be problems here. Like this is going to be problems, and so eventually, one big singer comes in to Toronto,
Sure.
massive singer at
Sure,
the time,
sure.
and we get the phone call saying, "Hey, man, this is the guy who's coming in. Can you do his security for the night?" And
Was the money good?
money was great.
Money was
Good.
good.
Great. Because what we ended up doing is we started branching off. So Vic and I had said to these guys who called us, listen, we're going to bring in our own team, and we charge $400 a guy for the night.
Okay.
And they were like, okay, how many guys do you want? And we managed to negotiate something like 20 guys. And they said, okay, and that was more than enough. So they paid us in full for all the 20 guys. And then as a business, you undercut your guys, right? You say, okay, guys, here's here's $200 for the night. So we justified in our head, we're going to spend one night here. It might be a rough night, but we're all going to walk away with money in our pocket. Yep. We're getting the money because we already got the money. It wasn't an issue of trying to collect afterwards. So we do it. And buddy, I must have been, Dave, I'm not even kidding you. I must have been in 12 all-out fist fights that night myself. 12 all out. And it
at an Indian gym?
Yeah, man. It was bad because this guy was not a good guy. Like, his music was not about, like, loving and hugging and be the best version of you. It's like,
was it kind of like a gangster Punjabi style?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
But not like hard, like really hardcore. So the guys they were bringing up was like, it was just squads of dudes coming in, and they're all getting drunk and they're all getting hyped up to his lyrics, and all his lyrics are about fighting other people.
Yeah. That's true.
So then you see like 5-on-1s. Well, now we got to deal with 5 guys. We got to get them out of here. And then there's a retaliation back and forth. And among the 20 of us, I think we all got in literally like minimum of 6 fights that night. And it sounds like, oh, it's fun. It's not fun.
No, not at all.
Anybody who's been in a legitimate fist fight,
especially in a bar
environment,
yep,
it is not.
No,
it is not fun.
No, too much, foreign objects.
And, dude,
you name it, right? And weapons, and
you getting hit with everything, and it's not fun. Anyway, so. So that at the end of the night, we end up kicking a group of 5 guys out, and these 5 guys end up leaving. They end up going down the street, and they come back and they rip the stop sign out of the ground, and they come back to the front of the club, or sorry, the banquet hall. It was actually at a banquet hall. They come back to the front of the banquet hall, and they throw the stop sign at a window, and it bounces back, right, hits one of the guys. It's so wild, man. Now they're all out there. They bring out sticks, and we had one guy who, I don't want to say his name here because he's a known guy in terms of MMA world. And at the time, he was practicing mixed martial arts. And this is 20 years ago. This guy was a veteran of the game. And he was messing dudes up. So guys didn't want to mess with him. And he opened the door by himself, and he ran, and he must have clocked out like 3 or 4 guys. The rest of the guys
really
ran. But it was like a movie, man. He Superman punched the guy back then. The first guy laid out was a Superman punch. First guy over. That guy was TKO'd. And then he knocked out another guy, I think, with a head kick. And then it became a crazy night, and they all ran. That was probably one of the worst nights for me.
That's interesting. Like, we'll talk about this later, but the MMA training you actually put it to good use.
Oh man, it was fantastic use because it's over quick, right? And I mean, you don't want to knock somebody out. That's never something you want to do.
No, exactly.
You want to control somebody. That's the best thing to do. Anyway, sorry, man, I got off on that.
No, this was great.
But
this is great.
But back to policing. So I was doing that job. I, Vic had all these other jobs, and in between, I'd worked security, and I'd maintained some other good jobs. And then after I took a year off of school because chiropractic kind of fell through for me in my vision going forward, I applied to policing, and this time I got it. And at that time, I was working as a civilian as well with Peel Police, and I was working in their intelligence department. So I'd got to know more cops, and the more cops I got to know, the more I was around that environment, I started really liking what I was seeing in terms of the teamwork, the assertiveness that comes with it, the really committing to the cause, being really confident. Like, you can't be in this line of work and doubt yourself. It's not an option, right? It's you got to be, and how you create that self-belief is through effort, experience, and application, and as well as execution. So you become routine to multiple high-level stress and decision-making processes on a regular basis. So decision making becomes relatively easy for you to do. It's a habit for you now.
Now, I just want to ask a question for example, young people or anyone who would like to get into this, and because we're at that point, we're talking about it. Any advice for anybody? And like for like, younger cousins or young people or anybody who wants to get into this. Any advice for them?
Yeah, I was talking to a guy today at our friend's chiropractic clinic. I was talking to him there, who's a young guy who had a good background. He wanted to get into policing. And my advice to him was ask yourself why you want to do this job first, right? And really find out why. And I'll explain why that's important. It's because that's what you have to remain committed to. And that's really what your promise is to yourself. It's not to anybody else. And policing is a very unique profession where this is not a place to have fun. This isn't a job you're going to come in primarily with the focus of, oh, I'm going to be able to wear a uniform and get free coffee and put my lights on and carry my gun. There's real responsibility that comes with that. And your first day on the road and your foot hits that pavement and you realize this is real life, that's an eye-opener, man. So ask yourself, are you ready for that? Or do you have that in you? What does your past record say about you? It's important to know. What does school say? Absences, your volunteer work, any contacts you had with the police, they don't go against you, man, right? It's how you operated in that. So being a professional, showing at a young age that you have control of your emotions, you can make cognizant decisions. Like really look at your past history and gauge if this is for you, because with this profession comes a whole other things that nobody warns you about or tells you about. You're dealing with horrible things. You have to make decisions sometimes spur of the moment that you're going to be heavily critiqued on, literally judged on at some point in your career. And you're going to get lost sometimes in why am I doing this? Because it's not like people call the police because there's extra cake at home where they brought donuts.
No. It's always something bad. Like, I hate to say it, but bad.
Yeah, always.
Most of the time.
Yeah, 99% of the time. If you look at the police core function, it's for public safety, preserve the peace, keep people safe, and protect our rights, right? So there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. And if you got a young kid who says, you know what, I'm into that, like I get it, man, and you have for me, and it's a personal thing, is I look for people who have a moral compass, right? A high moral compass, because you need that to succeed in policing. 100%. You need that. You don't need, you do need all these things, but the one thing I would tell the people is that moral compass should be set on extremely high. And you gotta follow that through. And if you can do that, you're ready for this, 100%. Not only are you ready for it, you're gonna have a fantastic time doing it, because you're gonna understand what I'm doing. You're gonna stay committed to your cause, not to getting caught up in any potential politics or, not thinking you're getting what you want and just getting caught up in the emotional roller coaster that it can be. It's nice to have focus.
So basically, like a personal mission statement, a very strong why that'll help you basically carry you through the tough times.
Yeah, you need to be committed to it for you, and I think that's anything, right? We're talking about anything that you do.
In life. Yeah,
I can't commit my happiness to an external source or whatever I want. It doesn't work that way, man. That's not life. I wish somebody had said that to me when I was younger, saying your happiness, your fulfillment, your achievement, it's not going to be from an external source. It doesn't come into you.
Yeah, it
leaves
comes from
you.
Yeah, that's right. It comes from within.
And I had to learn that through some hard times and some real self-reflection. But if somebody had just dropped that gem on me the way that my teachers did it to me, the way that my coaches did it to me, like those gems that now I value, I wish that was one piece of advice that somebody had said to me, that I would have just potentially made better decisions, because I've made a lot of poor decisions in my life because I was chasing an external thing that was not true, which kind of ties into MMA. It was a very eye-opening experience that highlighted that experience for me and that perspective on that whole topic.
Well, we're going to reach there. One question I had for you.
Yeah.
First of all, this is phenomenal. Really good stuff. And for all the listeners out there, whoever will be listening to this, it's really good, very motivating. And that's part of the mission of my podcast is I want to bring good information, motivation for people so they can learn, they can be inspired. And so far, this has been pretty good.
Yeah, thanks, Dad. I appreciate it.
And so when you started in law enforcement, and that, was there when you first started, when you're okay? So this is what I want to ask, because you can't really prepare, like, no matter how much training and all that. Like you said, real life is real life. Tell me of an instance tell me a story of where you hit the floor and you're like, oh shit, like this is,
oh man.
Like, was there something? And by the way, in due respect to
of course,
confidentiality, just like a general story, right?
Yeah. No, I got it. And these stories are long gone for me, and this is and that's kind of the part of it is.
I'll tell you why I'm asking.
Yeah,
I saw this story once, and it was hilarious. Hilarious in the sense that this officer he told a story of his first day on the job, and so like in the. Essentially, he was like on a training day, right? Like you're in your first little while, you have another police officer, experienced one, kind of coaching you through, right? So he got on a call. I think it was a domestic or something like that, and his mentor, officer, or coach got out, pulled out the gun, and he goes, "I sat there," and I'm like, I sat there going, "Oh shit." we need to call the cops.
Yeah.
And he goes, and he looks down. He looks down. He goes, that's me.
Yeah, listen, that happens to everybody, man. It's this is a growing pain. This is what I'm talking about when you realize, oh, this is real life. Like this is it, man. There's not a traffic stop. And
Like you're the call.
You're
like
the guy.
you're like unless you want to call SWAT, but you don't call SWAT for any. Like you're the call.
You are in that. You're the
People are looking at you going, help me.
You're
or
the
whatever.
solution.
Yes.
You are the solution.
Yeah.
There is no backup call here. There's no call up front. None of that exists. You're the solution right now. You got to deal with this right now. And there's a dire physical consequence potentially.
Yeah, potentially.
If you don't.
Yeah. So what? So you have you probably have so
man,
many, right?
I have so many, but I got a few because the ones that stand out the most are the ones where you're the stupidest. You laugh, you look back, and I say to myself like, I'm so stupid, like so naive, so green, so whatever you want to call it. And my very first day, it's a night shift. It's a Monday night, and this is
this is your very first day.
My first day on the road.
Yeah.
I'd done the police college. I had gone to all these, side training, and then that's it. They tell you, they say, kid, this is where you're going. Here's your police badge. Here's your number. This is your division. This is where you're going to go. So you're pumped up, and, you visit your place first. So it's like they tell you. And then on a day off, I went in to introduce myself to everybody and the big bosses. And it's not a warm Listen, this is
Hey, how's it going? My name's Ron.
And this is... And that's how I always was, and that's how I always am.
Yeah, you're a friendly guy.
I always go up and introduce myself.
Right.
I don't expect it, so I do it. Right? I say, hey, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So I walk
and
in.
they're looking at you going,
I'm doing
rookie.
And they're not only rookie, but then they think, oh, this is the guy. Like, that's the guy. That's the guy. So I didn't clue in on this till afterwards, right? So I come and I introduce myself, stay professional, and it wasn't like a warm welcome. And this is Toronto, man. Like, Toronto's a big city, man. People don't realize how big it is.
Is it? It's the largest, isn't it?
It is.
It's the largest.
I think fourth or fifth largest in North America, but it's the largest in Canada.
Oh, wow.
Dude,
in North America?
North America, man. It's a big city. Like,
wow.
We'll hear other places and we'll be like, those are big. No, Toronto's bigger. So I go to this division, and it's the west end of the city. It's a known division, one I knew about growing up, and I didn't even live in Toronto.
Sure.
So I get there, I'm excited, and my first shift is a night shift, and it starts off horrible, man. I get to just the whole day starts off horrible, and it gets worse. But I got there early, and I get to the basement, the change room, and it's all the guys, and hey, nice to meet you. They're not even changed. They're half shirts off, and
they're boxers.
Yeah,
buddy.
Hey, nice to meet you. I'm the new guy. I'm a rookie. It's so stupid.
Can I get my pants on first?
Yeah. And so I introduced myself, and one of them, we're still friends today. I guess he took a liking to me in terms of being like a young, energetic rookie coming in.
Yeah.
And he's this guy, and he goes, do you know who the staff sergeant's name is? Who's the big boss for me? I go, no, I don't. He goes, this is his name, write it down. He goes, do you know his badge number? No, I don't. He goes, this is his badge number, write it down, keep it with you. And he goes, remember that, because you need to remember that right now. So I'm changing, I'm saying the guy's name and badge number. And I get up, and there's something before you start your shift that's called a parade. So you sit down there with all the other police officers or police constables in Toronto, and then you have a sergeant who everybody checks, he inspects you, he makes sure you have your gun, your boots are polished, you look good, you're shaved, all whatever you need to be. And then he assigns you your partner, and he says, this is where you're going for the night. So as he's doing that, in walks the big boss, the guy who
you
I had to memorize his stuff.
Yeah.
And and everybody had said to me, hey man, like, he is going to go at you. So FYI. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I'll be ready for it. So I said, I'm going to be professional. He walks in, stand up. Hey, sir. Nice to meet you. I try to shake his hand. He's like, gives me the up, down, doesn't shake my hand. He's like, sit down. I go, oh, okay. I sit down, and now everybody sees me, and I'm like, oh my God. Now it's starting to sink in. Oh, I'm that guy. So he sits down, he looks at me, he covers his name tag, doesn't have his badge number on him. He goes, what's my name? So I tell him his name, right? I'm like, I got it. What's my rank? I got it. What's my badge number? He goes, I got it. He looks at me, he gives me up, down. He's like, you're cocky, kid. And he thought I was 2 years, man. 2 years. That guy just thought I was like high on myself and I was cocky, but I was just like, I was just trying to be nice, man, right? And guys planted stuff in me. So
you probably, your friend there, you probably owed him so many coffees
I did, man. Oh,
and
dude.
dinners.
Oh, yeah. That's why we're still friends today, because I know he was always looking out for me, right?
Nice.
So I get the parade, whatever you got, your partner, my coach officer at the time, who's a great guy, And as soon as we're in the parade, it's not even done yet. My first night, my first like 6 minutes as a cop on the street, the call comes over and it's a sound of gunshots. So it's multiple gunshots in an area in Toronto. Man, we're running out the door. This is like a movie. And I'm like, this is it. Like, this is it. This is it.
How'd you feel?
Oh, man, I was happy. It was so, I'm not smiling ear to ear. It sounds so messed up. But that's kind of mentally what I prepared myself for.
This is it.
All the stuff I saw in movies.
You're in the movie zone. You're like 6
minutes in.
Sounding gunshots. Yeah.
I'm in the zone.
Yeah.
And I hear it, and I'm like, oh my! And I'm just following direction. We run in the car, get in the passenger seat. We get down there. Me and my partner, are the first one down there, and I get out of the car, and it's an intersection. It's empty. There's nothing there. It's 11:30 at night. There's nothing there, and I get out, and man, I have my gun out. I'm pointed everywhere. I'm all messed, like not messed up, but I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
True.
I don't know. He never said to me, we don't have time to be like, this is what we're going to do, kid. You know, he should have said, stay in the car, make sure everything's okay. He was just like,
no, he's live, you're live.
We're going.
Yeah, you're going.
And he looks over to me, he's like, put your gun away. I was like, okay, I put it away, right? And he's like, don't pull it out unless I pull mine out. I'm like, I got it. And then we search around, there's no evidence of a shooting, and you get those calls all the time, right? So we end up leaving, and I went from being jacked up to like, oh my God, like, oh, okay, that was cool. And then, you debrief about it, and it's not fun because there were so many things I did wrong. So you get that criticism right off of the bat. It's raw. It's in your face. There's no, we can't afford to go through an HR system for that type of training. You know what I mean? It's so live. It would take you years to learn how to react to every situation. So in the moment, you have to be real with each other, right? If we work together and you did something wrong, it doesn't matter if your rank or how many years you have on or I have on. It's when it's a life-threatening situation and things don't go good, even when they go good, you should always talk about it and say, man, what did we do well? What didn't we do well? How did you feel about it? How did I feel about it? Because if we're going to be partners and work together, we got to learn off each other's mistakes. And it conditions you for taking criticism relatively well. But then you get stuck in a different mentality sometimes, right? And it becomes hard to change your decision because you might hear something and say, no, I've been in that situation. And actually, you're not looking at the next step. But that person's so focused on their perspective and their experience level, and that you might not get along, and it might cause any other issues. Anyways, that became real. And then as soon as we left that, we found a group of 5 people loitering in a rough part of the city. And he gets out, he goes to me, hits me, he goes, go find out all of their names. And that was it. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, go ask them for their identification and find out what's happening here. And they were
so now we're talking about this is the same day?
Same night, but this is like 5 minutes after that. Me getting out and like my gun out and like, I don't know what I'm smiling at here. I'm hiding behind a tree. I don't know what I'm doing. Right? This is like 5 minutes after that. Right? So we get a coffee. He lectures me the whole time. He says, when he did it in a kind way, but you messed up here. Don't do that. Do this. Don't do that. Do this. Don't do that. And he says, we're going to work.
And mind you, that's his role.
That is his role.
So he's, right? That's what it is.
And you're super receptive to it because it's not a secret. That's his role, right? So you're trying to cram in as much experience as you can in a short amount of time.
Short amount of time.
To just say, okay, how do I handle this when I'm on my own? Because after 10 weeks, you're on your own a certain time. So we get that, and then we go and I have to talk to these 5 guys. And this is real life. This is not in a controlled environment. This is not in some police college where, there's actors that are ultimately going to comply. This is going sideways, man, or this is going great. So I walk up to him, and it's the first time I remember speaking to a member of the public as a police officer.
Interesting.
Which is like, think about that.
Yeah, that's a whole other metamorphosis. Right?
That's
awareness.
It's not a transformation, it's a change.
Yeah, change.
Right, it's a change. And when that change happens, now I got to test that and be like, what works best for me? So you go through 30 interactions before you figure out, oh, this is my thing. And it takes you 30 rejections, 30 hard lessons to figure out your thing. And there's not one thing for everybody. It's you got to find your thing on how you talk to people.
So what did you do?
I maintained professionalism. I spoke to you like I'm spoken now. I didn't really change how I speak.
Okay, good.
I just said, I'm just going to be me, but I'm going to be a professional in what I say.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I'm going to do. Right
because, again, because you have the uniform on, there is also that you have to be assertive and...
But I'm representing
the
police.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Bottom line.
I'm representing the police. I'm there. There's no, if you don't do what I'm asking you, I'm going to call up the real police. No, I'm it, guy. This is like we talked about.
Yeah, I'm the call.
Yeah, and this is my job.
Yeah.
I have to know, certain times, and they were doing something that they shouldn't have been doing, and we had to know what's up. So it wasn't an option. So I had to get their names knowing that I was going to get resistance out of it. And I got resistance, and you got to navigate that. But I remember, you're feeling scared, you're feeling nervous, you're not sure about, what you can ask, what you can't ask. It's a learning experience. And then, you're still within the boundaries, but you don't know how much rope you can get in terms of, how can I approach this person? How real can I be? Or do I need to really maintain extreme professionalism at all times, right? You have to gauge that depending on who you're speaking to. So with these people, I didn't know what level they were at, right? I had an idea, but I wasn't sure on it. So I always kept it professional. And what I found was they actually appreciated my approach. And I had success, limited success. I mean, one guy lied to me right off of the bat, which was a hard lesson, right? So I had some success with getting their name through a conversation, which was just maintaining professionalism, being clear and coherent, and explaining exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I was like, I got to practice this. And when you do that, they kind of respect it. And one of the guys didn't have identification. So then I go back, I do all my checks on these guys, and they all came back okay. They were fine. But this one guy, just nothing matched up. Like, there was nothing. So now, and I'm not an experienced police officer. So I just think, oh, wow, well, this guy must not have anything. And my coach officer was like, he's lying to you about his name. And I was like, no, man, he's not lying to me. And he's like, no, he's lying to you. I'm like, dude, I'm a police officer. I'm a cop. What are you talking about? I'm like, dude, I have no issues with these
exactly,
guys.
yeah.
I'm like, he's not lying to me. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're wrong. He's like, listen to me. He's lying to you. So I go back to him and I go, hey, I got to ask you something, man. He goes, what's up? I'm like, did you lie to me? And
Oh, you said that to him? Like
yeah,
that?
yeah. Because my thing was like, here's my advice to everybody. And it's something I learned hard because I had 30 jobs before I became a cop, right? It wasn't like it was like, 2 jobs and I became a cop. I had a lot of jobs. And in that jobs, a lot of them were oriented around dealing with people. So you have to become a really good people person to make your job easy.
True.
So I'd already developed a kind of a way to do it. I just wanted to see if it applied here. So my thing was with everybody, I'm speaking to them the same way I speak to you. It's just, and my advice to everybody else is if you're ever in an environment when you think, who should I be? Be you.
Yeah.
Start
exactly.
there.
Yep.
Like start there.
Yep.
And then don't look in terms of, do I have to change myself in a downward position or upward position? Just be you and just watch your language, man. That's it. That's all you got to do, right? Be cool about things. So I did that and it worked for me in that. But then I realized, oh man, like, this guy did lie to me. And I was so disappointed in myself and so disappointed in him and so because we were cool. Right. And then
Or you thought.
I thought we were cool.
Yeah.
And that for me was like, oh man, people lie to you. Like,
Interesting.
And that was an eye opener where I'm like, oh my God. Like, this is
because you thought, hey, I'm the authority.
Yeah.
You must comply to me.
Yeah.
Right. And then you realize, holy smoke.
no, man. And for me, I got stopped a lot growing up as a kid by police, right? I was speeding or I was in a car full of guys and I got pulled over or, I was in a park after hours. Like I got stopped a lot and I never lied to them once and none of my friends did either. So that was a brand new experience for me. And I was like, oh man, like I can't believe this, that I fell for it. And two, this guy did this to me.
So when you said that to him, what was his reaction?
Oh, he's just, the body language changes, his story changes. And then we found out, he was on a curfew and some other stuff like that. But he lived right, like he was outside of his driveway. So we just said, go inside.
Go inside.
Just go inside, right? So he goes inside. It was a non-issue. It was something small. It was just being stupid. And then I left that and I was like, oh man, like, okay, one, I don't know what I'm doing in a high-risk environment. All right, I fall apart in that respect. And then the second part is, man, people lie to you. And that you fell for it, dummy. Right? That's the inner conversation. Yeah. Right? And then now your self-esteem just starts to crumble in terms of your confidence and decision-making within a few hours because you're like, I know nothing. And that's a hard thing to swallow because you think coming in, you have a grasp on what real life is. Man, there's a whole side to real life that nobody has I don't even know if it's unfortunate or if it's fortunate to see it. Because to see it and to experience it, you know what to look out for and you know what to stay away from and you know how to operate in your own life. Because you're seeing things other people don't see.
Now, is that now that's an interesting comment. Are you saying that on the basis of what you've seen in the line of work?
Yeah. Investigations, what you see, sometimes what you see lies to you. Right. And you got to be cognizant of that. So you learn very quickly, and there's a lot of criticism on this, and here's the thing: there should be some criticism on it when it comes down to police investigations and all this stuff. 100%, there should be oversight and there should be criticism on it. There should be, because we're investigating actual events that happen. But there's this idea that sometimes that we do it through a specific lens, and we're so focused on the lens we don't look at anything else. That can be so far from the truth. It's unbelievable. And I know plenty of investigators, and I've been in deep investigations, and I have very good friends in those roles. And the number one thing that we all do is, when you're an experienced and a good investigator, you're not too committed to one idea.
No, you can't be.
You can't.
You can't be, because then you don't know the whole story.
No, you don't. And when new stuff comes, you got to acknowledge it. And sometimes it takes you off of, okay, I'm kind of developing a hypothesis or a thesis or an idea of what happened here.
I got to ask this. I got a killer question for you.
What's up?
Right. So this is a bit philosophical, but you're a philosophical guy, I can see, and this is going to be a very, very interesting thing for me first, and then obviously your listeners, and even for you maybe. And you may have been asked this question already. Mm-hmm. Do you see human beings as inherently good or evil, or like, I'll tell you why I'm asking this. Because you've seen things in your career that the average person, you've seen more negative things or evil things than the average person can even think of, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
That's all police officers, by the way.
Yeah, everyone.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you from that lens, obviously, right? So the thing is that, for example, I'm not a cop. I'm a citizen, regular citizen, a civilian, you'd say. So I've seen things in my life. I've heard about things, but obviously you've seen things on a daily basis. So how does that affect how do you see human beings? Do you see them as good, like black, white, or gray? Like how do you see things?
You know what? That's a great question. I'll tell you why, because it ties into a bigger philosophy of life that I have now. And that philosophy is, the beautiful things about opinions and feelings is they change. And accepting that. And, when you really accept it and value that a little bit and said, you know what, I kind of feel a certain way right now, but I'm also aware that in 5 minutes I might feel differently. And that gets you through quite a bit, right? In terms of me, it helps rationalize a lot of irrational emotions and thought processes. And with people, that moment when that guy lied to me, I felt so betrayed by an honest conversation that I was having. And I thought, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be myself. Yep. I'm going to be fair. I'm going to be professional. I'm going to buy into this. And this guy took advantage of me, and I recognized myself in that as well. Saying, man, you did this as a kid, dummy. Like, so how can you be mad at this guy? Because you're really forced to stick with it and sit with it. And, then you realize, oh, man, okay, now I can't be mad. I did it. I can't be a hypocrite here. Like, I don't want to be a hypocrite. You could be a hypocrite to everybody else, but you know the truth. And that's going to sit with you, man. You marinate in that stuff. So I had to just get it out, right? And be like, so I talk it out with myself and in my head. And I'm like, oh, man, like, okay, what do you do from this? So, but I couldn't let go of that. I was too immature in life. I didn't have the experience I had now, or the series of events in my life that have led me to shift my perspective completely.
It's interesting because I've heard this before, that a lot of police organizations, they do tend to want to look towards older people for this reason, I think.
They do. And honestly, it's such a valuable thing, is to get people with real life experience. And
so how old were you when
I was 24.
Oh wow! So
yeah,
that day, that first day,
I was 25 that 25. Day, but I got hired at 24. But that first day I was 25.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, so that first day I was 25. And
I mean, mind you, like from your life experience, you were a VIP bouncer, and so you've had life experience. Like, you've probably had more life experience than the average 25-year-old, I think, in my estimation.
Yeah. Now looking back, 100% right.
Yeah, you're probably, you know what I mean? But still, there's that. So let me ask this. Let me grill down a little bit. So the first day you started, the big smile, you're all active, right? This is this is, is the world a rosy place?
When I first started that day, the world's a rosy place. When I left that morning, I saw a different side of the world, man, and I looked at things in a completely different shade. Man, you're literally, I'm not even kidding you. It's almost like a filter goes in and everything becomes a different shade. And now you feel like I'm looking at the real world for the first time.
What is that shade?
That
What
shade
is that?
is gray. It is gray. You're living in a gray area. And,
So not necessarily that, okay, everyone's an idiot and the world's evil, but okay,
you're gray.
everything is,
You're-
I can't,
You're in gray, and gray is such a chaotic area to be in. It's a chaotic shade. And in chaos, there is order, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All these people. But the chaos, you're the order in that chaos, or you feel like it. I'm not saying you are it. You feel the obligation to be that. So in there, you realize that there are good people and bad people. But I think an inherent part of our human mind for survival and for thriving is to be inherent of dangerous things. So whatever you learn to be dangerous to you potentially, you become hyper-focused on it. Because it's a real thing, and it's almost your obligation to question those things. When you see inconsistencies in real life that are patterns of behavior that have mimicked something you've experienced before that's been very violent or suspicious or criminal, you have an obligation to investigate that. I can't drive by it. I need to find out what's up, right? Why is there a guy walking in a back alley at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday in a residential area where 12 houses were broken into last week, all between midnight and 7 a.m.?
So let's progress your journey. So how was your first time alone? Because you said,
Oh, man.
I'm like a little kid, eh?
Yeah.
I'm like a little kid asking you
it's-
because again, a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, and I don't mind sharing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's-
A lot of people don't know this.
No,
right?
it's sharing, and the reason I don't mind sharing is because it's real life, right? And it's not bad, man. It's a good time. Like you get to help people, you get to do good things,
Yeah.
but your first time alone.
So that was after 10 weeks.
10 weeks. So
Okay.
you have one guy for 5 weeks, you have another guy for 5 weeks. They sign off on you. They say you're good to go. You kind of get the formal blessing. You go through an evaluation period. It's a legitimate
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
right? They
like
got to
a
make sure you're
process.
competent
Yeah, yeah.
to go
Yep,
out.
yep.
But once you're out on your own, they put you out on your own during a day shift, right? So you're working during the day, not nights and afternoons. You got a partner, man. Because when you're going to stuff generally in those times, you now don't have the luxury of visibility, right? So it's darker. So you need to.
So you
have
need
people.
another set of
You
eyes.
need another set of eyes.
Yeah, and
right?
just
safety
yeah,
issues,
got
right?
it.
Potential people could hide in the dark, where during the day it's not something you got to be aware of. So first day on your own, it's a day shift, and you get out there and man, actually, you know what? I had a really good first day, man. A really good first day, and it really put some tight relationships for me that day that I still have today. And one of them is so. You get out there and literally every call you go to, there's like 4 or 5 people sending you a message on the computer saying, "Hey, do you want me to come by? Do you need some help? Like, hey, have you ever done this before?" Like, people care.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah,
That's
there's a big family.
So like a
environment.
team,
yeah,
camaraderie.
huge. It's family, man. It's not even a team. And if you love that stuff, it's the closest thing I can compare it to is if you played on a sports team. It's exactly that, where there's kind of a coach, right, and who's your boss or whatever, but the team works together, and in that team, everybody has different roles and different strengths. Some are defensemen, some are forwards, and you kind of find your role in that team. And you realize in a team environment, the team does as well as the weakest player. So the team's very motivated and invested into making the team good, so they just come out and help you because they know, okay, the more competent Dave is at this job, the less I have to worry about it. So they build you up to a level. So you get that, and then I'd gone to breakfast, me and another rookie, guy I graduated with. We go to breakfast one day at this diner. Just this dive, and those are the best spots in the city. Do not go
As long as they have the health pass.
That's it. Health pass.
A dive
you're
with
good.
a health heaven.
Man, those
Heaven.
those small mom and pop shops.
Yep.
Don't go. Do yourself a favor. Do not go to any big name in the city. I'm talking the biggest name you can think of, unless it's a one-off restaurant in Yorkville or something like that, where you know what it is, right?
Yeah.
A nice steakhouse or something like that. Yeah, go to those. But if you're going you want to look at a menu for a burger, pasta, burrito, do not go to a restaurant like a big name.
Yep, go to the Mon Pa. Yeah.
Go find some churro shop in the corner,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm guaranteeing you, right beside the Subway, that's going to be the best churro of your life. That stuff is made 30 seconds before it's put in your mouth, right? And they bought that grocery that morning. Like it's
100%.
It's so good.
I was with a Scottish buddy of mine so I'm a business development consultant, sales guy, corporate sales guy for many years now. I'm on my own, but me and this one of my buddies, Scottish guy, he loves, so people in the UK love Indian food, right? So I knew this Indian restaurant, or I was in an area. It was kind of near right on the border of kind of Jane Finchish meets Vaughan area, so that area. And I knew that there was some Indian restaurants, so I took him to one. and I knew it was a dive. He wanted to go to he ate like Chili's and Marichachar.
Albion and Islington. That's
Yeah,
would be the intersection.
yeah. So yeah, that area.
Yeah.
that area. Okay. So I walked into this restaurant. Grandma type lady, like we say in Punjabi, BB type lady, right? Comes in. So, and I'm talking to her in Punjabi, right? She tells me what I can order. It was the coolest thing.
amazing, eh?
They had like a rough, maybe like one old paper menu, but she's like, no, this is what we're making. This.
Yeah.
So my buddy, you're not gonna. If I tell you, you won't even believe this. He had 10 aloo de pronte.
10 TKO'd.
Dude, he didn't eat legit. He said he said a Scottish accent. He goes, Devinda, I didn't eat anything for a day.
I believe him.
That's crazy, dude.
That's just heavy.
Oh,
heavy.
dude, man. He didn't eat. He goes, I wasn't, I don't know, man, with these Europeans, they love.
Oh, they love it, man. They love it.
So anyway, back to what you were saying. So you're at a diner.
Yeah, you're at a diner, and me and this rookie, our first day on our own, we do a couple calls. We go to grab breakfast and like to catch up. Be like, hey man, how's your day been going? And as soon as we do it, like, two of the big bosses come in, like the big boys, like and girls. Like it's a guy and a girl. They walk in and they are up top, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my god, like very high ranking officers. And I'm like, this is my first day, your first day, and look who walks in, and we're in full like. We're there, and I'm just like, oh my god! And they could tell by your badge number how long you've had on the job, right? There's the lower the badge, the more long they've had, so they're gonna know the last batch, and I'm in that last batch. So they walk by, and I remember I get up, they have their breakfast, I have mine, and as I leave, I go to the to pay for mine, and I go, you know what? I'm gonna pay for theirs as well. I'm like, I gotta try to save some face here, so I paid for the higher ranking. It was a guy and a girl. Paid for their breakfast, and I saw them almost every day after that, and nobody said a peep to anybody. Right, like we didn't have a relationship. It was nothing like, oh, thanks, not a peep. And 6 months later, same breakfast spot, they walk in, except I'm already there. And then when they walk in, they were already there. I walk in after them, and say hi, how are you? Grab a quick breakfast, 10 minutes, and you're gone. And when I went to leave, I went to pay, and they go, no, they paid for yours.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it was nice to have that, man. Where I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I kind of got it. So I had a really good experience coming up, man. And then, you're a cop, and you just go through the motions and. You learn stuff about humans, you learn stuff about yourself, and you realize very quickly nobody's perfect. People try their best. And then you make choices to say, I'm going to start really paying attention to the good side. Because there's more of that. Like 99% of people in the world, 99.99%, good people, man. We're just trying. We're all just trying. But that other 0.01%, we find them and we deal with them, and that's a big part of our day. But I think once you get some experience under your belt, both in policing and in life, you see that again. And then it becomes, man, this is cool.
So I know that you went into some specialized teams, special teams, within the force.
Yeah.
And which is also led to some of the stuff you're doing now.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about some of that? Because I've seen some of your videos.
Yeah, thank you, man.
And obviously I love them on LinkedIn. I think you say some really cool things. And so some of the videos I've seen on LinkedIn have to do with, basically gangs.
Yeah, gangs.
And gang culture.
Yep.
Right? Those kind of things. So tell me a little bit about that experience, because a lot of parents, both of us are parents, and just, people in society in general, it's a fear, right? Because I remember watching one of your videos, which was really interesting, was like, it's hilarious how you said we changed. Like when you and I were growing up, right? A little bit of an age difference. We listen to the same kind of hip hop.
Yeah, of course.
We listen to, all that stuff. And I remember in one of your seminars that in one of your videos, you're talking about how, a parent, I think it was a parent that came to you and said, I can't stop my children love this stuff. Their heroes are these gangsters.
Yeah.
These gangsters, this is what it was. I remember now, because it hit me when I saw the video. You were saying this, I think it was a mother it was a young man who was saying that, he idolizes this guy on Instagram.
Yeah.
So these gangsters now are also on social media.
Yeah.
Everyone knows who they are. So there's people like, oh my God, he's a hero. And so yeah, I mean, would love to hear your take on that. And I guess, what as parents and just as general society we can do to, I think it's complex because, it's so weird. Like when I look at popular culture, we really are glorifying some of the wrong things.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know what, man, I'll tell you this, and this is not the opinion of the Toronto Police Service. I'm representing them. I'm very proud to do so. And I am who I am. Right. And I don't think what I'm going to say is going to cause anything negative. It's just real life. And, 2.5 years ago, myself and my partner, who's my boss actually, and he's amazing. We were kind of tasked with the idea of every year for the last 14 or 15 years, the Toronto Police Gun and Gang Task Force has been arresting some big people in terms of the criminal underworld that are involved in gun and gang violence. And for 14 years, we do, or the Toronto Police Service, I should say, not we, but they do some amazing work with other police agencies, and they do a couple massive projects whenever it's deemed fitting and appropriate to do, where there's 80 search warrants and, 180 people arrested and thousands of charges, and we're seizing 50 plus guns and, all that stuff. It's big guys. These guys, they need to be held accountable for what they do. So doing all that, but every year, it's having a good impact, but the Toronto Police Service really wanted to expand that impact and say, what else can we do to put an end to this? And they said, all right, well, we want to figure out how do we get guys out of gangs. And I had worked in the Gun and Gang Task Force and under the Organized Crime Branch and done some other stuff in that space. And with that, with a particular population or populations, I said, throughout the city that will be more likely to be gang involved, which is a variety of people depending on where you are and what's happening. And I got brought into it by chance. And I think it was more fate or destiny now. And I'll tell you why, because it's a very impactful story, and I'm very personally attached to it, and I think that's why I take so much pride in it and really focusing on the vision. Anyways, I get involved into it, and we spent 6 months of hard research.
So this was a project.
This was
This is a project to further look at solutions.
Yeah, around gangs.
Around gangs.
Well, not gangs and gang violence. Gang violence particularly so, more so than gangs.
Interesting.
Gangs in itself, they're kids. 50% of gang members are under the age of 18. So this is not a war by...
Oh, really?
Yeah. This
so
is
50%
yes.
of gang members are under the age of 18.
That's correct. And they go as low as age of 6. We're seeing risk factors that are popping up at the age of 4. Yeah,
6
that are at risk of becoming gang involved. Like we will do investigations.
That's crazy.
I've been involved in investigations with serious people who have been involved in guns, gangs, and drugs, and we have lawfully seized through search warrants photographs from their cell phones that show them with their 3-year-old kid holding an extended magazine Glock firearm, wearing clothing with a gang attached to it. And those are the people that we're really trying to find, as those innocent kids that don't know any better or are exposed to a series of things where they're ultimately not going to end up in a healthy environment or path, or one that doesn't include violence. And it's a child. So with us, we spent 6 months hard research looking at how do we get guys out of gangs. We tried to develop a program, and we realized how big of a problem it was in terms of how people end up this way. Because if you look at gangs, right, and what they are, it's 3 or more people, generally speaking, that have conspired together to commit a criminal act for a material benefit. All right, that's kind of the
definition.
The definition of it. And it's an organized crime group, but we'll just apply it to a gang. And we just look at that on its face, and we're like, okay, they're inherently evil. Well, it doesn't specify which criminal offenses. And if you look at all the criminal things that gangs participate in, there's a lot that it encompasses. So it's not like we're dealing with, people who light fires. It's not like you're dealing with somebody who, shoplifts. You're dealing with everything. You're dealing with human trafficking, drug possession, firearm trafficking, firearm possession, murders, homicides, attempted murders, car thefts, extortions, robberies, other weapons offenses, stabbings. You're dealing with a ton of issues on the back end. And that back end, and when it shows itself, it becomes a serious community problem. And that's why there's a heightened awareness at the point that somebody actually gets victimized, that the public says something needs to be done about this. And they're right. They're absolutely right. But when we had done the research and we really invested to what can we do beyond what we already do, which is really, as the police, we're already now going above and beyond what's stipulated and what we got to do. We're really taking a proactive step in well, how do we plug this on the back end? Like, how do we stop it from getting to the point that something bad happens to somebody and somebody goes to jail? So when that got tasked to us, and we really benchmarked and talked with people from Canada first, in Ontario first, Canada, United States, then all over the world, we really started to paint a picture.
Hold on one second, because I want to talk about this. So, like, it's crazy, because the way you're speaking, I feel like I'm talking to a cop in America, or in the U.S.
Yeah,
like the way you're talking, okay, look, I look at Canada as the smiling face.
Yeah, of course,
and everything's loving and everything like that. And I appreciate you saying that. But from this angle, the world that you're talking about, I mean, it's like what we'd hear from New York somewhere, or like Chicago or Philly or whatever.
Listen, Toronto, big city. People don't acknowledge that. They don't appreciate that. When you go to a major airport, what cities do they have on the wall in terms of airport? Toronto's one of those cities, man. This is across the world. New York, LA, Shanghai, wherever you want to talk about. Guess what else is there? Toronto's there. So that's crazy that, for me, it's like even before I became a cop in Toronto, I didn't know. Like, I didn't know. I was born in Toronto, man. I didn't know. And then you get in and you realize, okay, this isn't like, then you think you know everything. And then that's not good for you, because you're going to go through those emotions of, I know nothing, to, oh, now I know everything. No, you're in trouble, man. And we all get there at some point in our life with anything that you do. You get to a point when you think, I got it. And I can speak from my experience multiple times that I got ahead of myself and I thought I got it. I paid a price, man. And that price was a hard lesson and I value it. But that meant I didn't know anything. And then you have to unlearn. And unlearning, it's like MMA. They teach you a straight and a cross. They got to get your technique down first, because if you get bad technique, that's hard to unlearn, right? And it's the same thing with thinking and experiences. You have to unlearn some things. And I don't mean unlearn. I mean just crack open the cracks a little bit and find the chinks in your armor. And when you can do that, then you get a potentially a better picture, not a perfect one.
So when you did this study, and you looked at it, and then from your experience, what's the number one reason people join gangs?
The number one reason is people think there's a number one reason, right? They think there's one sole reason why gangs happen. It's not the case. There's multiple of them. So
you're saying that there's multiple reasons together.
There are. It's a conglomeration. It is a recipe of disaster. And the recipe, we know what it is. We know the key ingredients, and that's where we put all our focus. And I'll tell you how we came across that. One of the first things you got to ask is, how do we identify a gang member? Right? So I'll do these seminars and I do all these talks through the Toronto Police Service, as well as with a whole bunch of partner stakeholder groups.
Is that what I saw?
Yeah. Those are some of my seminars,
some of your
and some
clips.
of my talks.
Yeah.
And we're doing actually 4 next in June, intense ones with another partner stakeholder government agency to get there up to speed in terms of how we're thinking about things and how we're approaching things, because we need them to. We need outside people. So here's the long story short. As cops, they tell you got to get a gang member out of a gang. How do you find a gang member? Being objective, not subjective, based on personal experience, because now it's not true. You can't apply that in 100% of cases.
Like they don't look a certain way.
You don't.
Or the demographic.
You're wrong, and you realize that. There's this idea that police officers profile everybody. It's not profiling. It's we don't do that. Like, there's some people that make mistakes. People make mistakes all the time. I'm talking about police officers, but 99% of it, we are very clear and objective. If we got it, we got it. If we don't, we don't. Right? And that's how.
So that's a myth?
That's a complete myth. 100% myth.
Because you do hear that a lot, right?
Here's the thing.
Like racial profiling.
I can't speak for I can't speak for other places. I can speak from my experience. I can speak for the people I've worked with, all the thousands of guys and girls I've worked with, and I have never seen it. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not to say it doesn't exist.
No, I got it.
But it's not.
In your experience, it's not.
It's an expectation. It's a exemption.
Exemption.
Right? They're very small.
Exception.
Yeah. Exception is the word I'm looking for. So it's very small percentage. But me personally, I've been fortunate. I haven't seen it. I don't adopt by it.
I've often. It's interesting. I've often looked at it as. A description's a description.
Yeah, and you just
like it's not a profile. It's like if a particular person does something, what's their height? What like I mean, even races. Yeah. You never know really, right? Something could be So it's just a description. So you have to go by it, right?
You got to go. But for us, when it came down to identifying gang members, we didn't want to do that, nor should we. We really recognized early on, dude, we're wrong. Like you can't. We're going to miss people.
Well, the thing is, gangs are multicultural.
They are multicultural, man.
And now, from what I understand, I don't know if you know this, but you wouldn't know this. So my background is criminology.
Mm-hmm. I think we spoke about that before.
Out of OU.
Yeah.
So I have a little bit of experience in studying crime. But the idea is that now, from what I understand about what's happening out there, is like gangs work together.
Yeah.
And there's for example, biker gangs. Now biker gangs are allowing visible minorities they never did before.
Yeah.
Or stuff like so you're right. So how do you identify it, right?
So through research, we found a publication that was produced to us by Public Safety Canada from 2007, which they looked at gang members and they said, what are the commonalities here among gang members in terms of risk factors? What life events must happen, or what life events do gang members that they studied are similar, or can be corroborated among all of them? And they found 36 of them split up into 5 different categories.
Interesting.
And those categories are individual, peer group, school, community, and family. Okay, so
wow.
It's a combination of those 5 things. So your family, your school, your peer group, the person, the individual, as well as the community that they're in. Right, and there's 5 different categories.
Community, you mean like literally the vicinity, like the geographic area?
Yeah, there's a theory called the social disorganization theory, which is an amazing read, right? And that is in line with community, saying that, and with the community, the social disorganization, people aren't aware of it. Long story short, it just means that location matters. That outside of an individual, their location can be a major, if not bigger, factor in their behavior.
Interesting.
Right, and it's a theory. It's been put out there. It's been around since like 1940, so it has some substance to it because it's still referenced today, and things I've read.
It's
recently.
a part of nurture.
It is,
right? We say nature nurture. So
yeah.
So that is location is nurture.
Location does matter. You can't avoid that. So, anyways, once we found that out, we said perfect. Now we kind of got things that we need to look out for. Low attachment to school, no parental involvement, parent criminality. Previous delinquencies, all these things. And then we found on top of that was not only 36 factors, but when they show themselves in terms of age and what categories pop up first. So then we're like seeing earlier on at the age of 4, at the age of 3 or 4, it's conduct problems. And conduct problems can be anything, but I'm talking about overly overt conduct problems where everybody notices that there's a severe conduct problem. Well, that's one of, I think, 7 in that particular category. And then at the age of kindergarten, which will be 6, when you see school failure, that's a major sign. You got to start paying attention to that. So now,
can I ask a controversial question?
Sure.
This is a little bit controversial, but as I've studied. Obviously, I'm a criminology student, and you're a police officer. When we look at those factors, and without sounding like profiling, but I guess I'm just kind of calculating. Would you be able, because if you take location and then parental stuff and the whole 9 yards, in a way you could clock certain areas, right?
Yeah, of course. But that's based more on equitable scores than it is those factors.
Interesting.
That's a bigger factor, is what is the equitable score of a neighborhood to the particular city. And the equitable score is based off of not only economics, but it's also based off of perspectives and opinions and direct access to things like, do they have a voice in the shape of their community in terms of environmental structures? Do they have a representative from the BIA? Like, are they well represented in city talks? Are they well represented in identifying problems and all that stuff? And that equitable score.
What did you find?
Oh, it's those are low equitable neighborhoods, and we have 31 of them in the city of Toronto that has been identified.
That they don't have a strong voice?
But now the city's fantastic. The city of Toronto, they started this study, and they have this project, which I can't speak to in depth because I don't know enough to speak to. I know enough that I need to know.
No worries.
But it's called the Toronto Strong Neighborhood Strategy 2020, and they had done some study of the city, and they had broken down the city of Toronto into 140 neighborhoods. And out of those 140 neighborhoods, they compared them on an equitable score to say, okay, where do we need to really improve some areas? Where do we really need to invest to get these guys to catch up to everybody else?
Wonderful.
And they identified 31 low equitable score neighborhoods. And out of those 31 low equity neighborhoods, my data comparisons and my insights into that and investigations have been that those are traditionally higher crime population areas sometimes, depending on what it is, and their categories of offenses could be gang related. And we're still in the midst of figuring that out, saying, well, how do we really tie into this? But that's a big part outside of race. It's actually, race has been disproven as a risk factor in gang involvement. No race is more prone to become gang involved than any other. They're all equally prone to it. It's been debunked as a risk factor by academic studies. In fact, the only time race and culture really get brought into play is when it comes to rehabilitating out of a gang lifestyle. Because you need to be respectful of perspective, mindsets, and cultural standards.
No, and I can see that, because if you were to take a certain race of people, put them in an area, a good location, good community voice, you don't have that.
No, it's tough, right?
And a good family structure.
Yeah.
Right?
Look at most immigrant groups when they immigrate to Canada. Look at our parents, right? My parents went to Toronto because Indians were in Toronto, and then they went to Brampton because Indians were Brampton. And populations go to where their people are to be most comfortable, to learn how to acclimate, to have some connections within their own community that understand, again, their perspective on life. And, you really tie to that, and it's nice to have. So it makes sense that in some of these neighborhoods, for whatever reasons, I don't know, I legitimately do not know, that they might score a low equitable score. I don't know how that works. I don't have a background in it, and I didn't speak to anybody who's directly involved in that, but I've read the report intensively, all of them. And we have stuff in Toronto too, where we're going to double up in the Toronto Police. We're going to double up with the city of Toronto to really get resources in there and do problem identification, and not even problem identification. I call it solution identification now.
Yeah, well, it is.
It is.
It's 100%.
It's not a problem. We're out of that stage, man. We're ahead of the game here.
Agreed.
So with us, we take these risk factors. We end up educating thousands of frontline cops on, hey, look out for this in your daily duties. If you find it, let us know. And what we do is, whenever we find it, we try to make contact with the family. We try to help find their risk factors, and then we try to mitigate them with protective factors through partner groups. So, we try to find it within a residential location of somebody. So, for example, if it's something like, a parent who says, I'm unemployed, and that's a risk factor. And it's finding out, okay, well, why are you unemployed? Are you having trouble finding a job? And then maybe connecting them with a job agency or something in their field through networks to say, okay, we can patch that up for you. Let's coach you through that. And then what else is there going on? Well, my child may have a drug addiction. Okay, let's get a family counselor in there. Let's talk to this kid and get them into a drug program. And really, as the police, frontlining this and saying, we don't want to ever see these kids to everybody else who has better access points and are differently impacted than the police. Because there's thousands of those groups and people that are impacted, and probably 10 or 15, I can tell you, from the age of 0 to 18 that are impacted more than we are. Schools. Talk about gangs, that impact on a school environment, that's critical, man. They know what's up, right? And school's a safe place. And I'm not talking in terms of safe place, nobody comes again.
It has to be.
It should be. It's a safe place for people who are potentially involved in fear for their safety. It's also a place where teachers are fantastic people. They're beautiful people, man. They invest their time into growing kids. Like, let's just break that down. Like, just think about that. This person, a teacher, has said, I'm going to spend the rest of my life
dedicating to the next generation,
making these people better versions of themselves,
and everything. So let me ask you this. Let's shift gears from your experience. So, what was it like interacting with gang leaders and gang members?
So I've been around gangs my whole life. Like, legitimately, like from the age of like 13 or 14, my parents had filed bankruptcy, believe it or not, at a young age, and we had to move around quite a bit. And when you move around and you have that status attached to you, you're not staying in the best spots, right? They're doing their best. And I was at influential age at that point where I was always moved around. I still had my main core friends, but I didn't see them all the time. But whatever neighborhood I went into, I wanted to have friends. And some of the neighborhoods at the time, I made friends with guys that were at risk of being gang involved or were gang involved, and we just became friends.
Now you look back, did they have those?
Yeah, 1,000,000,000%, and that's why I'm so committed to this, is because I know it. I've experienced it on that side, man. 100%, I was that kid on the other end, man. Believe it or not, 100%, I was in those situations, and I know guys that were in that situation and still were in this situations, and things didn't work out for them, right? And it's like, I'm telling you, man, like, I see that side, man. I don't see how clear it is now because I'm not in it now, but I know what that felt like. I know 100% what that felt like. And I know the guys that got involved in that, and I know what they were before that.
So what did it feel like?
It's horrible. It's horrible. It's you see, like, my friends that got involved, and I had 3 really close friends growing up that were very involved, and ultimately one of them, two of them, the last 2 years passed away, gang involved. 2 guys.
Sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, and
meaning like a violent death?
Yeah, 2 of them. Right, one 2 years ago, that was a big thing for me, and then one 6 months ago. that and I felt so bad when I found out because, you know, I know what. Listen, they're responsible for what they did. All right, they're 100% responsible for what they did. But it's sad that it even got to this point.
So did you, this is interesting. So were you in touch with them as an officer?
You know,
or were you like two different lives?
No, it's weird, man. It happens so organically in life, right? There's no, and that's how I know. Like, listen, man, there's still a deep place in my heart for these guys, man. Like, you know, there's your friends you have before you become a cop, and when you grow up in those type of environments, they're happy for you, man. They're happy.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Like,
so what you're saying, this is interesting. So what you're saying is that these friends of yours before you joined the police force, they were obviously involved in this lifestyle or highly at risk due to all those factors.
Yep.
But when they found out that you had become an officer, it was like they were very interesting.
They sheltered me. I didn't find out till afterwards. So when we were together, they wouldn't do what they did.
So you didn't. Okay, so you knew it, but you kind of didn't know it.
I knew it, but I was never involved.
You were never involved.
I was never. I would hear about it. Like, if we played basketball after school on Friday, right? And they would come to play ball and all that stuff. I would hear them talking about stuff when I wasn't around, and I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, when did you do that?" And they're like, "Ah, man, this thing happened at the back of the school. You know, this guy robbed us, and we robbed him back, and like." You know, and so I was like, whatever. I just thought it was one-offs, but they were fantastic guys. And it wasn't until I had follow-up conversations years later that one of them was like, "Hey, man, like, we knew you were onto something, man, and we didn't want to do that to you." You know, and that's the crazy part is that's not a sole experience for me, man. That's happening right now. You know, in these gang environments where. Not in all of them, but in majority of them, in the history and the evidence in academic studies indicates that when they see hope, and this is my loose translation of it, because it was more of, the actual study said when a gang member left a gang because they were going to university or they found a girl or they moved or they wanted to change their life, and it was when they had those motivations to leave a gang, 0 of them faced repercussions. 0. So I'll ask you, what do you think that's from, based on what I just told you? Right. So when I read that, I clued in, and I'm like, all right, man, that secondary conversation I had now made sense.
You know what it reminds you of? Remember that movie with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck? It was in South Boston.
Oh, it's the one where they put the nun masks on or something like that?
No. This is a really good movie. It's with
The Departed?
No, it was Robin Williams in the movie.
Know.
It was an old movie, and I can't remember now. Anyway, Ben Affleck sees hope in Matt Damon that he can leave South Boston. Remember?
I vaguely remember this, but I can't tell you what it is.
Yeah, I can't. Anyhow, and so Matt Damon is on his way to an academic career or whatever, and he finds out. And Ben Affleck says, "What the hell are you doing here?
Yeah,
what are you doing bad?
Yeah,
that style.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's what when you're telling me, I think of that scene where he's like,
and like looking back and seeing all that, I can identify now maybe the 2 guys who did that for me, who really
pushed you, motivated you.
As much as I may have felt I was the leader at times, they were the actual leaders. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, interesting how you find that out later in life.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. As much as I felt
it's not always the quiet person in the back saying, "Well, try this."
Yeah, they had bigger influence over the group of friends than I did, right? So, but they just allowed me to, just. And here's the thing: it sounds like it's a whole organized thing, dude. It's not. It's just friends you grew up with.
Yeah, sure.
Sure, I'm telling you,
I get that. I see what you're saying.
For me,
sure.
Right? And that's somewhat represented now in some of our experiences. But for me, I was like, I recognize that so much. It's such I really see myself there, and it's scary when you actually have those moments where you legitimate. I'm not talking like, before I would hear people say, "Kid, I've been in your shoes. I know what that feels like," and that meant shit all to me.
Yeah, sure.
I was like, how do you know? How do you know what that feels like? And now that I'm seeing it in other kids or other people I deal with, where I know, listen, man, this guy's part of the 90% of gang members that don't stay in a gang. You know, it's a social thing. They kind of get in. They might do one or two stupid things, but they're so minor, relatively. Like nobody gets hurt. It's just they're experimenting, and then they realize, man, this is not.
Is it hard to leave a gang?
It depends on how deep you're in. It depends on what your role is.
Because again, I'm going by movies, and
Yeah.
you know, they always say once you're in, you can never really leave, and that style of thinking, right?
You know what, man? I can only speak on my experiences for that, and it's I don't know if it's that hard now. What I can tell you back then was, and even right now, it just depends on how deep you're in that gang. Like if you're in the upper echelon, the 10%, it's very difficult. It's very difficult for reasons I don't even understand. I'm not even going to pretend to understand. But what I do know is it's difficult. And that's for a multitude of reasons. It could be for many reasons. Some of those reasons could be...
And probably a lot of intel, right? A lot of intelligence.
Yeah. You know, it's like a leak. You know, imagine... and that's not even to say that's the truth. It's just that's the perspective. That's the perception of it, is you're a leak. Potentially. I don't know. I'm saying is that makes plausible sense.
Yeah. From what you're... I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know, but I'm saying that makes plausible sense. But I'm not saying that person... They might feel so compelled to stay to prove they're not. When regardless of what they're just going to try to take an absent role into it. You know what I mean? Like remove themselves. But those guys, it's hard. But the 90%, listen, it's doable. We can do it quicker than 2 years. You know what I mean? Like they have an average lifespan. I think of the study that I read, if I remember correctly, it's like 2 years, and they're in and out. Between 16 and 18, they're like in, and then 18 happens. They go to university, college. They move. They get a job. They find a girl who gets them straight and narrow, or a guy who gets them straight and narrow. Whatever happens. You know, man, they're 2 years. Our goal right now is those guys. Our focus is how do we identify those guys? Because by default, then we identify the real problems. You know, the ones who are human trafficking, drug dealing, killing people, murdering people, ordering those things. You know, those are the guys that, as police officers, we want to catch. Those are the guys we're into. We're not into this 90%.
I'll tell you something that scared me. It was this was actually from Peel Police. Peel Police put out a release, or it was a report, and I couldn't believe it. But human trafficking is huge.
Yeah, it's a big thing, man.
I didn't. They were saying in Peel.
Yeah, it's sad, eh?
I was stunned.
Yeah,
I was like, you know, I have some relatives who do some volunteer work for certain agencies, and they were saying, they were like, you can't even believe it. I was, you know, having kids and stuff, you know, it really hits you, right? It was just kind of like, I was like, holy smoke.
But I have extremely limited experience with that field, and I know enough as I need to know, but I wouldn't be able to speak on an expertise. But what I can tell you is, in my own social circle, and I'm talking like 6 degrees of separation, I know of 2 kids that were involved in human trafficking. 2. And that's me just looking at my social circle, like couple, and that's through like going to dinner parties and people saying, hey man, did you know my neighbor's kid or my friend's dad's friend or whatever, like that guy you met that one time, hey man, their kid got involved in this stuff. Like I know too.
As a victim? Like
yeah,
they became
man.
victims?
Yeah. Based on what I was told, and you know, there was stuff had been sorted out by that point, but now stuff started to come out, and it was like, listen, man, I just the fact that I had those impacts outside a professional environment, and in the professional environment I had limited. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, right? Like when you think about it that way.
Now the stuff that you've been researching and all that.
Yeah.
Is it street level gangs, organized crime, or like a mix?
It's right now it's like organized crime. We think like mafia style, right? Like that's what people think, like mafia, cartel, those type of things. No, this is more right now. Our primary focus on what's in front of you, and what's in front of you is kids, right? I'm going to call them youth, so at-risk youth that show themselves pretty clearly in behavior, and sometimes in flat out saying they are gang members. Somehow showing you every sign that they are in terms of writing it on the school book and having T-shirts and YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and, you know, repping whatever they got to rep. And we'd be...
That's crazy. You know, I still can't get over that in your presentation, and you just mentioned it again, that it's that open.
Yeah, it's pretty... Well, there's a sense
like
of,
Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah. Here, think about it this way. And this is just some conversations I've had with gang members who've provided me with some insight, or ex-gang members or people involved in that lifestyle. Through a variety of years, right? And it's kind of putting together a picture that I see. And that's what I see is potentially is you have a a gang member, and I speak about it actually in one of my seminars where I said I spoke to a gang member who, long story short, he had a very established social media account, Instagram or Twitter, I forget which one, and he had left it open for public view. All right, it was open. You wanted to find out if this guy was a gang member, you just go on there, and not only do you see he's a gang member, but you'll see evidence of the offenses that he potentially may have been involved in. Right, it's just
That's
stuff
crazy.
And
so that's pretty almost arrogant.
That's very arrogant. And then I spoke to him about it. We had a side conversation, and I'm like, you got to explain this to me, man. Like, you're not a dumb guy, you know? And that was the thing about him. You'd asked me before, what are gang leaders like?
Yeah.
And I don't know what gang leaders are like. I don't know how many conversations. I think legitimately maybe I've had one conversation with a gang leader, an actual leader in my career, and I probably wouldn't even know it if I did. But what I do find is there are people that are extremely charismatic, extremely intelligent. There are kids in there that are, these guys are little CEOs, man. Like, they got it. They got it. They have vision. They know how to do it. They're ruthless in their approach. And that ruthlessness, if it just could be tweaked, just to say you don't have to do the physical violence part. If you just applied that same willingness to do whatever it takes to something productive here, kid, like, let's take that drive and let's put it on paper and let's make a business plan and let's hit markers and milestones and take a project management approach to this and let's drive it to your skill sets that you already have, managing people, finding resources, being resourceful, you know, like, that's a big one. You know, having people skills, having influence, you're motivating people to do things they don't want to do. Those are all CEO quality skills to me and qualities of leaders, right? And those are rare. And that's why they're in the position that they're in.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So when you find
that's so fascinating.
That is, man. And I'm telling you, when I find these guys and we have these exchanges, they're operating at a very high level. And I listen.
And these are like what, 18-year-olds?
18, 19-year-olds that, you know, 16-year-olds that you're just thinking, and I'm like, are you kidding? You are in, you know, you're like, to them, and they are so motivated in their abilities to do things, and they do it. And it works for them because of a variety of reasons, right? It could have been inherently taught to them through upbringing. It could have been an exposure. It could have been having street smarts, having the adapt skills, the right protective factor, the right word from a teacher to say, kid, you're going to do something great. What does he define as great? What is he going to make that for him or her, right? If his greatness is a hip hop guy from the hood, he's going to get that. And that's where these guys come from.
So what you're saying is these are great people. They're just in the wrong, they're just in the wrong path.
Listen, I have a good group of people around me outside of police that really give me solid criticism. And the last one I got was from a guy outside of police, very heavily involved in social work himself. And he says, you know what? He goes, you say bad guy a lot. And he goes, they're not bad guys. He goes, they make bad decisions.
Well said.
And
you know what they say in our culture, right?
No.
It's really interesting. In the Indian culture, what they say is, they said no one's ever good or bad. Just there are certain times.
Yeah.
In life.
We all got it.
And and situations. Like how, you know, you were talking in the beginning.
Yep.
Time and situation make people.
Yep.
You know, like if you have to survive, you'll do whatever.
Well, all my seminars too, it comes down to, you know, what I really believe in, which is curbing. It's ultimately, what do we have to do? We have to change human behavior. We need to influence human behavior. So I put a lot of time into psychology work, saying, what do we do? And you know, it is shifting words. Words matter, man. You know, words matter. And when I get that criticism, say, don't say bad guys, it's bad decisions. Yeah, there's the philosophical aha to it, but what I take from that is, and how he kind of explained it to me was, hey, what you say matters. So you have to choose your words wisely. And what I was doing was I was calling them bad guys because that's in my lexicon. Right.
And I'm sure it's just used casually a lot.
Yeah,
in your line of work, right? It's just one of those things.
And we don't mean it like in the worst way you could mean it. We just say bad
like, even the cop song, Bad Boys.
Like, it's just that, right?
Right?
But I was using that language with people who were being called the bad guy from other cops, from previous experiences. So I was losing my message because people were attaching to an emotion from a word I misused. You know what I'm saying? And when you're doing those presentations,
words of power.
Words are power. Words matter, man.
Yeah.
Words matter,
of power.
And that's, you know, and it's so important. So I focus a lot on language and words, and having people who might have opposing views from me in the audience who I've become friends with that say, hey man, you got to change this. You got to change that because it's coming across like shit. And I'm like, oh, fuck, thank you for telling me. It's not easy to hear because you're like, you're committed to it and you feel like an idiot afterwards because you're like, I can't believe I did that, and I'm representing this awesome organization. And I mean, I recovered pretty quick. I apologize. I didn't know, right? And it's generally, it's a small portion of it, but it's great to hear.
Thanks for tuning in to the Double D Podcast. See you next time.